The night was heavy with storm. Rain poured down like endless sheets of glass breaking on stone. The world around Ryan was drowned in water and darkness. His ship had fallen silent hours ago, its engine sparking only once before dying completely. He had tried to shelter inside the broken hull, but the roof leaked, and the cold reached him until his bones shook. At last he stepped out, pulling his torn cloak around his shoulders, hoping to find something, anything that could keep him alive until morning. The landscape was strange. Towering trees leaned toward each other as though whispering secrets he could not hear. Their branches creaked in the wind, and the ground turned to thick mud beneath his boots. Every step was a battle against the storm. Ryan was tired. His throat was dry, his stomach empty, yet he pushed on because stopping would mean giving up, and giving up meant death. As lightning flashed across the sky, Ryan caught a glimpse of something far in the distance. At first he thought it was a trick of his eyes, a shadow cut sharper than the rest, tall and unmoving. He blinked against the rain and wiped water from his face. The figure was still there. It was a woman. She stood in the middle of the path as though waiting for him. Her long dark hair clung to her shoulders and her pale skin seemed untouched by the storm. Her eyes shone faintly, not like fire but like cold stars. She wore a cloak that flowed with the wind but never seemed soaked. Ryan froze. His heart pounded faster than the thunder above. He wanted to call out, but his voice caught in his throat. Why would anyone stand out here in such a storm? It made no sense. He thought perhaps she was lost, as he was. But something about her stillness, her silence, made him feel smaller than he had ever felt. The woman spoke at last. Her voice was calm and steady, carrying through the roar of the storm as though the rain bent away from her words. "You should not wander here," she said. Ryan swallowed hard. He forced his voice to work. "My ship broke down. I have nowhere else to go. I need shelter." Her eyes studied him. Not cruel, not kind, only searching. Then she stepped closer. Each step was light, almost soundless, even though the mud swallowed Ryan's boots with each of his. When she reached him, she looked down slightly. She was taller than him, and he felt her gaze weigh on him more than the storm. "You are human," she said. Ryan frowned. "Of course I am. Who else would I be?" Her lips curved, not quite a smile, not quite a frown. "Few humans walk this land. You are far from home." The rain seemed colder the longer he stood before her, yet there was something in her tone, something not threatening but filled with strange certainty. He wanted to look away, but her eyes held him in place. "I need shelter," he repeated. "Do you know any place nearby?" The woman turned her head toward the hills behind her. Dark shapes rose there, half hidden by storm and fog. For a moment lightning lit the sky, and Ryan thought he saw sharp towers rising above the hills. A castle, he realized, though he wondered if his mind was tricking him. "I will take you," she said. Ryan blinked. "You will? Yes, you will not survive the night here." Her tone gave no room for doubt. Before he could answer, his knees buckled. The long walk, the hunger, the cold, it all crashed down on him. He fell forward, catching himself only barely with his hands. The mud splashed his cloak and face. He tried to push himself up again, but his arms shook too much. The world spun around him. He saw the woman move closer. For a moment he thought she would leave him, but instead he felt her arm slide under his shoulders. She lifted him with ease, as though he weighed no more than a child. Ryan wanted to protest, to say he could walk, but his voice failed again. "You will rest," she said. "Save your strength." The storm seemed quieter once she carried him. Ryan's eyes blurred, but he caught flashes of tall stone walls through the fog. The towers he thought he had imagined were real. They cut into the sky like spears, their tips hidden by clouds. Gates older than any machine he knew stood wide, and beyond them lay a vast hall of stone. The woman stepped through the gates. The sound of rain softened as though the castle itself pushed the storm back. She carried him through dark corridors lit by strange blue fire that burned without smoke. The walls were covered in carvings of stars and maps, symbols he could not understand. Ryan's head rested against her shoulder, but his mind still fought to stay awake. He wanted answers. He wanted to know who she was, why she helped him, what kind of place this was. But all he could whisper was one word: "Who are you?" The woman paused only a moment before answering. "Mira." The name echoed faintly in the great hall. After that, Ryan's eyes closed fully. He drifted into darkness, the sound of the storm far away now. For the first time since his ship broke, he felt warmth. Not comfort, but warmth enough to let sleep take him. When Ryan woke again, the storm was gone. He lay on a long bed of carved stone covered with soft cloth. The room was wide, its ceiling lost in shadow. Blue flames burned in tall stands near the walls, filling the air with a faint hum. He sat up slowly. His cloak was gone, his boots cleaned of mud, and his body warmer than before. He touched his chest. His heart still beat fast, but not from fear, from confusion, from wonder. He remembered the rain, the woman, the name. Mira. The door opened without a sound. She stepped inside, her cloak flowing like water. Her eyes still glimmered faintly in the dim light. "You are awake," she said. Rian nodded. "Yes, where am I? In my home? My castle? Why did you help me?" She looked at him, silent for a long moment, as if deciding whether to answer. At last she said, "Because you are human." Ryan frowned. "That does not explain anything. Perhaps not. But you will learn." Her words were not threatening, yet they left him restless. What did she mean by that? What could she want from him? He felt like a piece placed on a board in a game he did not yet understand. Still, he could not deny one truth. If she had not found him in the rain, he would already be dead. That night, as the storm raged outside the castle walls, Ryan lay awake on the stone bed. He stared at the blue flames flickering in the dark and thought of Mira's eyes watching him in the rain. He did not know if she was friend or danger. He did not know if her castle was safety or trap. But he knew one thing: this was only the beginning. The storm had passed by the next morning, but the castle still felt wrapped in darkness. The air inside was cool and heavy, as though the walls themselves held the weight of centuries. Ryan woke slowly, his body stiff but rested. He sat up on the stone bed, listening to the silence. Only the faint hum of the blue flames filled the chamber. He touched the cloth that covered him. It was soft but strange, woven from a fabric he did not know. He wondered who had placed it on him. He knew the answer already, yet the thought of Mira moving about while he slept made him uneasy. The door opened with the same quiet ease as before. Mira entered, carrying a small tray with a bowl and a cup. She set it down on a low table near the bed. "You must eat," she said. Rian hesitated, staring at the bowl. It held a thick soup, dark in color, with small pieces of root and grain floating inside. The cup was filled with water that glimmered as though touched by light from the flames. "What is this?" he asked. "Food. It will give you strength." He looked at her, then back at the bowl. He had little choice. His stomach ached with hunger, and he was too weak to argue. Slowly he lifted the spoon and tasted the soup. It was rich and warm, far better than he expected. He ate slowly, watching Mira out of the corner of his eye. She stood still, her hands folded before her, watching him in silence. The longer he looked at her, the more questions filled his mind. When the bowl was empty, Ryan set it aside. "Thank you," he said. "But I need to understand. What is this place? Who are you, really?" Mira's gaze held his. "This place is my home. It is older than your people's memory. As for me, I told you my name. I am Mira." "That does not explain why you are here alone in this castle," Ryan said, "or why your eyes shine like that, or why you carried me as though I weighed nothing." Mira stepped closer, her cloak brushing against the stone floor. She stopped just far enough that Rian could see the faint details of her face. She was beautiful in a way that felt unearthly, but her stillness unsettled him more than her beauty. "My people are called the Nightborn," she said. "Long ago we walked among the stars before humans had even built their first fires. To many we became myths. To some we became fear." "Nightborn," Ryan repeated. The word felt heavy. "And humans called you vampires." Mira tilted her head slightly. "So the stories remain." Ryan tried to steady his breath. He thought of the old tales told by space travelers, stories of beings who lived forever, who drained life from others, who haunted the edges of forgotten worlds. He had never believed them. Now he sat inside a castle with one of them. "Why bring me here?" he asked. Mira's eyes softened, though her voice stayed calm. "Because you are human. And I have studied humans for longer than you can imagine." "Studied," Ryan repeated. "Yes, your kind is fragile. You break easily, you live briefly. Yet in that brief span you create more than many older races ever dared. You build cities, you sail the void, you dream of reaching what you cannot touch. My people do not understand this, but I wish to." Ryan's chest tightened. He did not know if her words were praise or warning. "So I am just a subject for you?" "No," Mira said. "You are not a subject. You are a chance. Her words puzzled him, but before he could ask more, she turned toward the door. Come. You should see the rest of the castle. Ryan followed her slowly. His legs were steadier after food and rest. The halls stretched on endlessly, lit by the same blue flames. The walls were carved with symbols of stars and lines connecting them like webs. Some carvings glowed faintly, as if energy still lived within the stone. They reached a tall chamber where the ceiling was lost in shadow. At its center stood a round table of black stone. Upon it rested maps unlike any Rian had seen. They were not paper but glowing patterns, shifting and turning as though alive. Whole galaxies spun before him in miniature, stars blinking like scattered gems. Mira stood beside the table. This is the memory of my people. Every star we touched, every world we walked recorded here. Ryan stared in awe. He reached out but stopped short of touching the glowing light. It is beautiful, but it feels sad too. Why does it feel empty? Because we stopped, Mira said. Her voice was low, almost a whisper. We turned away from the future. We chose silence. Where once we built, now we only watch. We have lived too long, Ryan. Too long, and we have forgotten why we should go on. Rian turned toward her. And humans remind you of that? Yes, your kind never stops. Even when you fall, you rise again. Even when you lose, you keep fighting. That is why you are here. I wanted to see that spirit with my own eyes. Ryan felt both pride and unease. He did not like being studied, yet he could not deny the truth in her words. Humans were stubborn, sometimes foolishly so, but it was that stubbornness that kept them alive where others might surrender. They walked on. Mira showed him halls filled with relics, blades that hummed with light, machines that pulsed with quiet energy, scrolls that floated in the air as though weightless. Each object told of an age when the Nightborn had reached across stars. Now they rested in silence, forgotten in the castle's endless rooms. At last they stood before a balcony. Mira pushed open the tall doors and the cold air rushed in. The storm had ended and the sky was clear. The twin moons hung above the horizon, silver and pale. Below, the hills stretched into the distance, their grass still wet from the rain. Ryan stepped forward, gripping the stone rail. The view was vast and quiet. After the chaos of the storm, the silence felt almost unreal. Mira stood beside him. Do you fear me? She asked suddenly. Ryan hesitated. He wanted to deny it, to say he feared nothing. But he could not lie. Yes, he said. I fear you. But I also trust you. You saved me. Her eyes flickered, almost like surprise. Few would say that to me. I am not like most, Ryan said simply. Mira studied him for a moment longer, then looked back at the sky. Perhaps you are not. They stood in silence. The moons shone bright, the wet earth glistened, and somewhere far away, the faint cry of a night creature echoed through the hills. Ryan's mind was full of questions. Why did she live alone? Was she the last of her kind? Did others of her people still walk the stars, and what would they think of a human standing inside their ancient home? But he said nothing. He felt that the answers would come in time. For now, it was enough to know that he was alive, that he had shelter, and that the woman called Mira had chosen to bring him into her shadowed world. Yet deep in his chest, one thought grew stronger with each passing moment. He was not only a guest here, he was part of something larger, something that stretched beyond the rain and beyond the castle. Mira's words about the Nightborn, about humans, about hope echoed within him. The Castle of Shadows was no simple refuge. It was the start of a path he could not yet see. And Rian knew that whatever awaited him in its endless halls, he would face it. The castle was more alive than Ryan first believed. On his second full day inside its walls, he realized the blue fire that lit the halls was not simple flame. When he passed close to one of the tall stands, the light shifted slightly, as if reacting to his presence. At times it brightened, other times it dimmed. He touched the cold stone beneath it, but the fire itself held no heat. It was something older, something he could not name. Mira noticed his curiosity. The fire is memory, she said. It burns without fuel. It is the record of what has been. Record, Ryan repeated. How can fire be a record? Every spark remembers, she said. Every flame holds a piece of thought from those who came before. This castle is not only stone, it is mind. Ryan shivered, though the air was not cold. He pulled back his hand and looked down the endless corridor. The walls seemed to hum faintly as though listening. He wondered how many voices, how many centuries were locked inside these flames. Later that day, Mira took him to another part of the castle. The hallways grew narrower, the air cooler, the carvings older. Dust lay thick in the corners, though Mira walked without disturbing it. They reached a chamber with walls shaped like a dome. In the center stood a tall pillar covered with marks that glowed faintly. "This is the heart of the archive," Mira said. "Here lies the memory of the Nightborn." Ryan stepped closer, staring at the moving lines. They shifted slowly, forming images of stars, then fading, then returning in new patterns. He saw shapes that looked like ships sailing through dark skies. He saw figures standing tall with eyes that burned like Mira's. "Your people recorded all this," Ryan whispered. "Yes," Mira said. "We feared nothing then. We traveled to every star we could find. But our pride blinded us. We thought endless years meant endless strength. We forgot why we began. We forgot purpose." Ryan turned to her. "What happened to you all? Why are you here alone?" Mira's face remained calm, but her eyes carried shadows. "We divided. Some chose silence. Some chose war. Others faded into the dark, wandering without aim. Few remain. Fewer still care to speak." "And you?" Ryan asked. "I chose to watch," she said, "and to wait. For a reason to move again. For a reason to remember what we lost." Ryan felt the weight of her words. He looked again at the glowing pillar. He thought of the vast galaxy, of all the worlds humans had reached. They were small compared to the Nightborn, yet they never stopped trying. Perhaps that was why she saved him. He asked carefully, "You think humans have what your people lost?" Mira studied him, her gaze steady. "Yes, you struggle. You fall, but you rise again. You are not bound by endless years. You are bound by hunger to live before time runs out. That hunger gives you strength my people can no longer find." Ryan felt heat in his chest. Part of him wanted to deny her words, to say humans were weak, selfish, often foolish. But another part of him knew she was right. Their short lives forced them to burn brighter. He asked, "And that is why you brought me here?" "It is one reason," she said. "Another is that you were alone and the storm would have ended you." "I do not enjoy needless endings." Ryan could not argue with that. Still, he felt like a piece in a game he did not understand. Mira spoke of humans as if they were symbols, not people. Yet she had chosen him, a single man lost in the rain. That thought made his heart beat faster. In the following days, Mira continued to show him the castle. They walked through halls filled with devices that still hummed with quiet power. One chamber held mirrors that reflected not his image but strange scenes of distant lands. Another room held spheres that floated in the air, turning slowly as though pulled by unseen hands. Each time Ryan asked, Mira answered only part of the truth. "These are tools," she would say. Or, "These are remnants." She never explained fully, and that made his curiosity grow. One evening, she led him to a high tower. The climb was long, the steps narrow, yet Mira moved as though the effort was nothing. At the top, a wide window opened to the night sky. Stars stretched forever, brighter than Ryan had ever seen. Mira stood beside him. "Do you see them?" she asked. "Yes," Ryan said. "They are beautiful. They are endless," she said. "We once thought we could hold them all. But the more we reached, the more hollow we became. Tell me, Ryan, when humans look at stars, what do they feel?" Ryan took a breath. "We feel small, but also strong. Because we want to go there, even if it takes 1,000 years. Even if we fail again and again. We keep looking. We keep trying." Mira's lips curved slightly. "That is what I wanted to hear." For the first time, Ryan thought he saw something close to a smile on her face. It was faint, but it changed her completely. She looked less like a shadow and more like someone who still remembered light. That night, Ryan could not sleep. He lay on the stone bed, staring at the ceiling. He thought of Mira's words, of the castle, of the strange fire that remembered voices. He wondered if he was the first human to stand here or if others had come before him. If they had, what became of them? His thoughts grew heavier when he remembered the look in Mira's eyes. She studied him not only as a guest but as something more. He was beginning to feel as though his presence in the castle was no accident. The next morning, Ryan explored on his own. Mira allowed it, though she told him not to leave the inner halls. He wandered through corridors he had not seen before. He found a chamber filled with statues of tall figures, their faces stern, their eyes carved with strange symbols. Dust covered them, yet they seemed alive, as if they would step down at any moment. he whispered to himself. Is this what her people were like, as if in answer? One of the blue flames near the statues flickered brighter. Ryan stepped back quickly, his heart racing. The flame dimmed again, but he felt watched. He hurried from the chamber, the image of the statues burning in his mind. When he returned to his room, Mira was waiting. She looked at him with calm but knowing eyes. You saw the statues, Ryan nodded. Yes, who were they? They were leaders, Mira said. Voices of my people when we still followed purpose. They guided us across the stars. But they too fell silent. Silent, Ryan said softly. That word again. Yes, Mira said. Silence is worse than death. Death ends. Silence lingers. Her words sent a chill through him. He realized that Mira feared silence more than anything. It was not death she escaped from, but emptiness. As days turned into a week, Ryan felt the bond between them grow, though it was not trust alone. It was a shared understanding. She saw in him the restless fire of humanity. He saw in her the weight of centuries. They were different, yet both were searching. One night, as they stood once more on the balcony, Ryan dared to ask, What do you want from me, Mira? She turned her eyes to him. They shone brighter than the stars above. I want to see if the fire of humanity can awaken what has long been asleep. I want to see if one spark can call another. Ryan did not know what to say, but in that moment he understood something. He was not here only because of chance. He was here because Mira believed that humans carried something worth remembering, something worth protecting, and deep down, he felt the truth. The castle held many secrets, but the greatest secret of all was not its fire or its relics. It was Mira herself. She was waiting for something. Perhaps she was waiting for him. The days inside the castle blended into one another. Ryan lost track of time because the blue fire never dimmed, and the halls always carried the same calm silence. He would walk with Mira through the endless chambers, learning pieces of her people's past. She spoke of their ships, their long journeys, their victories, and their mistakes. Ryan listened with interest, but he also felt a weight pressing on him. He was not only learning about the Nightborn, he was being prepared for something. One evening, while they stood on the balcony watching the twin moons rise, Mira's voice grew heavier. The quiet cannot last, she said. Ryan turned to her. What do you mean? There are others, she said. Not all of my kind have chosen silence. Some choose conquest still, some hunger for control. They will not ignore a human standing inside my walls. Ryan felt a chill run through him. Why would they care about me? I am only one man. Because you are proof, Mira said. Proof that I seek to learn from humans. Proof that I believe in something they turned away from. That alone makes you dangerous to them. Before Ryan could reply, a deep sound echoed through the hills outside. It was like thunder, but it did not come from the sky. The ground trembled and the air seemed to tighten. Mira's eyes narrowed, glowing brighter. They are here, she said. She led Ryan quickly through the halls and up to another tower that looked out over the land. Ryan followed, his heart racing. From the high window he saw movement below. Dark figures crossed the hills, their cloaks trailing behind them. Their eyes burned faintly, just like Mira's. There were many of them moving with the silence of hunters. Ryan's throat tightened. They are Nightborn too. Yes, Mira said. They are a rival clan. They believe humanity is weak. They believe the Nightborn should rule without question. They will not let you stay here. Ryan watched them spread out across the hillside like a shadow stretching wider. Fear pressed against him, but beneath it was something sharper. Anger. He had found shelter here, and now it was threatened. What will we do? He asked. Mira's cloak shifted in the cold wind. I will fight them. Ryan shook his head. Not alone. There are too many. You cannot face them, Mira said firmly. They are not like you. They are faster, stronger. Then I will not fight like them, Ryan said. Mira looked at him, her eyes narrowing slightly. She studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Very well. Then we fight together. They moved quickly through the castle. Mira showed him a chamber filled with broken pieces of metal and old devices. Some were shattered, some still glowed faintly. Ryan's eyes widened. Among them he recognized fragments of machines not so different from human ships. Use what you can, Mira said. Ryan's hands moved fast. He searched for anything that could serve as a weapon or trap. His mind raced with old training from his travels. He had no power like the Nightborn, but he had creativity. That was his strength. He found a set of metal orbs that hummed softly when touched. He tested one, throwing it against the stone. It exploded with a sharp crack of light that left a mark on the wall. He grinned. These will work. He set the orbs in narrow corridors, places where the invaders might pass. He pulled wires from broken devices, stringing them across doorways. He piled loose stone near weak points in the wall. The castle was old, but it could still be defended. Mira moved with him, watching but saying little. At last she spoke. "You think like a builder of war." Ryan shook his head. "I think like someone who does not want to die." The first strike came when the rival Nightborn reached the gates. Their shadows spread across the stones as they forced the doors apart. The castle trembled with their strength. Mira stood at the center of the hall, her cloak flowing, her eyes glowing brighter than Ryan had ever seen. "Stay back," she said to him. Ryan crouched behind one of the stone pillars, holding another orb tightly. His heart pounded. The gates burst open. The rival clan entered, their eyes shining with cold fire. They moved like predators, silent and sure. One stepped forward, taller than the rest. His voice was deep and sharp. "Mira, you betray our kind with this human." "I betray nothing," Mira said. "I seek what you have lost," the tall Nightborn sneered. "Then you are weak, and weakness has no place among us." They rushed forward. Mira's cloak snapped as she moved. Her speed was beyond anything Ryan could follow. She struck with her hands and with her will, the air itself bending around her. The clash filled the hall with sound, stone cracking under the force. But more kept coming. Ryan knew she could not hold them all. He waited until two shadows broke away, moving down a side corridor. He threw the orb. It exploded in a flash of light, knocking them back against the wall. Ryan shouted and pulled the wires he had strung. A shower of sparks filled the corridor, forcing the Nightborn back. His traps worked. For a moment, the invaders hesitated, unsure. Ryan used that moment again and again. He dropped stones on one group, forcing them apart. He lit the corridors with the strange orbs, slowing their advance. Each time he acted, Mira struck harder, her strength renewed by the space he created. The tall Nightborn turned his gaze toward Ryan. His voice cut through the chaos. "A human dares," Ryan met his glowing eyes. Fear gripped him, but he stood firm. Yes, a human dares. The battle raged for what felt like hours. At last, the rival clan faltered. They pulled back, shadows melting into the night. The tall Nightborn glared at Mira once more. "This is not the end. You cannot hide behind him forever." Then they vanished into the dark hills. Silence returned to the hall, broken only by Ryan's heavy breaths. He leaned against the stone, his body shaking with exhaustion. Mira stood nearby, her cloak torn, her face calm but her eyes bright. "You fought well," she said. Ryan laughed weakly. "I did not fight. I just tried to survive." "And you survived," Mira said. "That is more than many can say." Ryan looked at her. "They feared me. Not because I was strong, but because I was human." Why, Mira stepped closer. "Because they do not understand you. They see only weakness in humanity. But tonight you showed them something else. You showed them will. You showed them that even without strength, humans can still turn the tide." Ryan felt pride rise in his chest. Though his body ached, he had faced creatures older and stronger than him. And he had not broken. He had stood beside Mira, and together they had held the castle. As the night grew quiet, Mira looked toward the stars beyond the balcony. Her voice softened. "Perhaps you are the spark I have been waiting for." Ryan followed her gaze. The stars stretched endless above, cold yet full of promise. For the first time since entering the castle, he did not feel like a lost traveler. He felt like part of something greater. The test was not only Mira's, it was his. And he had passed it. The battle in the hall was over, but its memory clung to the stones. Ryan could still feel the weight of the rival clan's presence, their cold voices echoing in his mind. Mira moved with silent grace beside him, but even she seemed changed. Her steps carried heaviness. Her eyes glowed with something deeper than before. Ryan spent the following days repairing what had been broken. The castle bore cracks where stone had split, scorch marks where light had burst. He gathered loose fragments and set them aside, fashioning what he could into tools. His hands worked until they grew rough, but the work steadied him. It gave him something to focus on while his thoughts stormed. Mira often watched him from a distance. When he asked why, she answered simply, "I am trying to understand you." Ryan would laugh softly. "There is not much to understand. I am just a traveler who got caught in the rain. But Mira shook her head. You are more than that now. You stood against my kind and did not falter. You are a symbol, whether you wish it or not. Her words weighed on him. He had not asked to be a symbol. Yet as he walked the long halls of the castle, he felt the truth of it pressing against him. He had seen how the rival Nightborn had looked at him with contempt, and how Mira had looked at him with something close to hope. He was caught between two worlds. One evening, as the blue fire flickered along the walls, Mira led him to a chamber he had not seen before. The door was carved with old symbols that glowed faintly when touched. Inside, the air felt colder, older. At the center stood a tall crystal, dark as night, yet glowing softly from within. It pulsed like a heart. Mira's voice was low as she spoke. This is the heart of the castle. It holds memory. It holds power. It remembers every step taken within these walls. Ryan stepped closer, feeling its hum in his bones. Why bring me here? Because you must choose, Mira said. Her eyes caught the crystal light, shining like silver flame. The rival clan will return. They will not rest until you are gone. I can protect you for a time, but not forever. You must decide if you will remain here, learning with me, standing against them, or if you will return to your people and leave this place behind. Ryan's chest tightened. The choice was heavier than any he had faced before. If I stay, I put your people in danger. Mira shook her head. They are already in danger. If you stay, you give them a reason to fight for more than survival. If you leave, the clans will say they were right, that humans are weak, that I wasted my faith. The choice is yours, Ryan. No one else can make it. Ryan walked slowly around the crystal, his reflection shifting across its dark surface. He thought of his home, the endless roads he had wandered, the people who had once walked beside him. He thought of Mira's eyes in the rain, the shelter of her cloak, the strength in her voice when the hall shook with battle. Why me? He asked quietly. Mira's voice softened. Because you did not bow. Because you did not look at me as a monster, but as a being who still had something worth seeking. That is rare, even among my own kind. Silence filled the chamber. Ryan placed his hand against the crystal. It was cold at first, then warm, as if it recognized his touch. Images flickered in his mind. Shadows of past battles, faces long gone, stars across endless skies. He felt small before it, yet also connected. When he turned back to Mira, his decision had formed. I will stay. If they fear me, then let them fear what a human can do. I will not run. For a moment, Mira said nothing. Then she stepped closer, her cloak brushing against the stone floor. Then you are bound to this place as I am. Together we will stand. That night, Ryan did not sleep. He walked the castle walls, feeling the wind carry whispers from the hills. The stars shone cold above, but he did not feel alone. Days turned into weeks. Ryan trained with what weapons he could find. He sharpened old blades, tested strange devices left from ages past, and built traps stronger than before. Mira guided him, showing him how to move with silence, how to listen to the smallest change in the air. But she also listened to him. She asked about human ways, about the taste of bread from a village fire, about the sound of rivers in the mountains, about laughter in crowded markets. Ryan told her everything he remembered, and she absorbed it like a thirst that had never been quenched. Slowly, the castle changed. Where once it had been silent and cold, now it carried the echo of footsteps, the hum of repaired machines, the warmth of voices in its halls. The blue fire seemed brighter, steadier, yet the shadow never lifted. Both knew the rival clan would come again, and they did. It was dawn when the earth trembled once more. Ryan was on the wall watching the mist curl across the hills, when he saw dark figures rising from the fog. This time there were more. Their shapes moved like a tide of shadows, their eyes glowing faintly in the early light. He hurried to Mira. She was already waiting, her cloak flowing, her eyes bright. They have come in force, she said. Ryan gripped the hilt of the blade he carried. Then we meet them in force. The battle began before the sun fully rose. The rival Nightborn swept toward the gates, faster and fiercer than before. The traps slowed them, the walls shook with their blows, and the old castle groaned. Mira fought like a storm, her strength radiating through the air. Ryan struck where he could, lighting traps, turning devices against their attackers. But even as they fought, the tide pressed closer. The rival leader returned, his cloak dark as the night. his voice cutting through the chaos. This ends now, Mira. Humanity cannot stand beside us. Step aside or fall with him. Mira's voice rang out clear. He is proof that you are wrong. He is proof that will is greater than fear. The rival leader laughed coldly. Then let us test his will. He surged forward faster than Ryan's eyes could follow. The clash shook the hall once more. Ryan stumbled back, then steadied himself. He saw Mira struggling against the leader's strength. Without thinking, he acted. He ran to the crystal chamber. His hands pressed against its dark surface again. The crystal pulsed and images filled his mind, stars, ships, battles. He reached deeper, willing it to answer him. His voice echoed in the chamber. If you remember every step, then remember mine. Lend me your strength. The crystal flared with light. Energy surged through his body, not like Mira's power, but something different. Something human. It was will sharpened into force. He carried it back into the hall. The rival leader turned just as Ryan hurled the energy forward. It struck with blinding light, forcing the shadows back. The rival clan recoiled, their leader staggered. Mira seized the opening, striking with all her strength. The hall shook, the stone cracked, and the rival leader was thrown down. The others faltered, their eyes dimming. One by one they melted back into the mist, leaving silence behind. Ryan stood trembling, the crystal's energy fading from him. His body ached, but he was still standing. Mira stepped to his side, her hand steady on his shoulder. You called the memory of the castle. It answered you. Ryan nodded weakly. Not because I was strong, but because I chose not to give up. Mira's eyes softened. That is why humanity endures. That is why you matter. As dawn broke fully across the hills, the castle stood scarred but unbroken. The blue fire glowed steady within, and the air carried not silence but strength. Ryan looked out at the light spreading across the land. For the first time in a long time, he did not feel lost. He felt at home. Mira stood beside him, her cloak brushing against the wind. The war is not over, she said. No, Ryan agreed. But neither are we. Together they watched the sunrise over the castle, a human and a nightborn, bound not by fear but by choice, and in that choice lay the future.